Boom, shuckalugga, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters around the world. You are listening to the soulful sounds of Chris Shule, the chocolate Nubian soul brother from Ghana, West Africa, here in Melbourne, Australia, down under. You know you can rely on me because I'm on team. I'm True Blue, mate. I do as I'm told. I took the magic potion. Well, actually, I didn't, but I think I did because I'm a transvestite. Ladies and gentlemen, be sure to like this video, subscribe, click on the bell, tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your momos, drop us the comments and let us know what it is you are listening to the most conscious podcast YouTube channel in all the multiverse. We speak on science, spirituality. We speak on bitches and Bitcoin. We speak on agendas, conspiracy theories, conspiracy facts, what's going on in this crazy world. Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to talk about the black community. I think it's something that I don't often speak about. How very un-black of me to not care about the color of someone's skin. Ladies and gentlemen, I judge people by the content of the character, not by the color of their skin. But it seems that we've lost that beautiful idea that was put forth many years ago by Martin Luther King, who is someone that I derive a tremendous amount of inspiration from. And I wanted to take the opportunity to speak about what some of the black leaders have been doing, what some of the figures in this world have been putting out there. But it really isn't just about the black community. This is about the community at large. This is about the Jewish community. This is about the pink community, the white community, the chocolate community, the sexy community. To all my sexy people out there, call me. But ladies and gentlemen, this is not about race. It's not about the color of your skin. This is about freedom. Freedom is the birthright of all sentient beings. So buckle up. Let's get this shit on the way. This is going to be a heavy podcast. So I want to talk about Kanye. Kanye, also known as Ye, recently changed his name, is a powerful figure, has a powerful name. When I think of Kanye, I think of other people with a name that has strength. Khans, like Genghis Khan, someone that has a name that you cannot forget. And I think Kanye is going to be very much someone that we will not forget. He is someone that questions the moral certitudes of the time. He's someone that always makes a lot of trouble, like Genghis Khan, or like Karna from the Mahabharata, from the Bhagavad Gita. This was someone that went against his brothers, fought. I look at Kanye as someone that is very much an individual. He's someone that beats to the rhythm of his own heart. And he is also someone that is a reflection of us. When I think of Ye, in fact, the word Ye, which is what he's recently changed his name to, is a word in Old English which means you. Kanye is essentially you. He's another you. In alakek, as is said, he is another you. He's basically a representation of us, or perhaps a version of us that we would aspire to be these bold individuals that can speak the truth even if our voices shake, that can plant ourselves like a tree beside the river of truth and say nay to any adversaries that try to stand in our way. That is Kanye. And he's someone that has been doing that as of late. He's been saying a lot of bold things, regardless of how you feel about the statements. They are his statements. No one's putting words in this guy's mouth. You know, for better or worse, Kanye speaks his mind. There are times when he is not the most eloquent about the things that he says when he is speaking publicly, but we don't know everything that's going on in this guy's life. This is a man that has had his children essentially taken away from him. He is a man that has been made to look like a fool in the eyes of the media. But of course, the man that he is, he doesn't care about that. He doesn't allow people's perceptions of him to define who he is. He realizes that he is a powerful, strong man. And he is a reflection of society at large and is willing to speak things that need to be spoken. I want to give props to this guy. I think he is a musical genius. I think anyone that is able to be that prominent for so many years is someone that knows how to play the game, on the musical side of things at least anyway. And obviously, on the business front, the guy has done amazing things. He was recently a billionaire, or as he aptly puts, a multi-billionaire. But due to some unsavory remarks as of late, speaking about certain groups of people, he lost a lot of money. Last time I checked, he was worth around $400 million, and he has a lot of companies that are pulling out of their support for him. So what's happened to Kanye is important for many reasons. It touches on something we're seeing a lot at the moment, censorship, and it touches on the way in which we address groups of people. I find that there's a lot of angst within the black community, within the white community. There's a lot of unsettled trauma in regards to how they look at different races. And it also brings up the people in society that you're never able to criticize, right? Those beautiful people that we shall not mention the names of lest we get canceled. But we're gonna speak about I always make a distinction. Anytime I want to talk about races or groups of people, I try to be specific. I want to speak about Zionism, which is very different to Jewism, if that's even a word, or the Jewish race per se. That is very different. And I think one of the errors that Kanye made when he tweeted that he's going to go DEFCON 3 on the Jewish people is that he used the term Jewish people. And I think a lot of the times when people express their frustration, rather than expressing that frustration on an individual or being specific about what they're actually frustrated about, they target an entire group of people. And obviously that leaves an unsavory feeling in your gut, because you know it's not fair. The idea of holding an entire race of people at fault for the actions of one individual is not only unwise, but it's stupid. But it's something that we find people do in this day and age. It's this racist approach where something horrible that has happened to us is expressed by us having issues with an entire group of people, and that's never a good idea. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Kanye and his recent statements. So, first of all, elephant in the room. Let's talk about Kanye's statement in regards to the Jewish people. Kanye made the point a while back after he said that he's going to go DEFCON 3 on the Jewish people, that there are a lot of people that he's worked with within the industry that were Jewish that have done horrible deals. Perhaps a lot of people don't understand what goes on a lot of the times within the contracts in the music industry. Often you will sign things without reading them. And it sounds like a crazy thing, but it's not when you realize that most of these contracts are not pages, but they are many pages. Not many pages. Sometimes they are this thick. I've had to sign contracts being on reality TV shows that were so thick that there's no way you're going to be able to understand everything, let alone read everything. And granted, they give you lawyers in order to go through this thing. There's often things that you either don't understand or you often miss. And as a result, the people that drop these lawyers, they take advantage of that. They often craft words in this clever way to take advantage of you. You find that they are taking money from you in ways that you weren't aware of, or that you were owed certain amounts of money that no one's ever told you about. And I think we get the impression that Kanye has been on the wrong end of many unfair contracts, which, according to him, more often than not, I would imagine, have been due to people that happen to have a particular religion or faith or ethnicity that can be tied to the Jewish people. But rather than addressing those individuals, he's decided to delegate an entire race of people as guilty for the actions of one person. And that's the problem that I have. You see, whereas Kanye touches on something that does no doubt happen within the entertainment industry, and look, let's face it, there are a lot of powerful people, a lot of powerful Jewish people within the entertainment industry that often oversee the careers of many of these black artists. The real issue here is just the power that this group of people have in the world. The problem I have is people don't understand the distinction between Zionism and the Jewish people. Not all Jewish people are Zionists. Zionism is more of an ideology, a political ideology, where people are advocating for making Israel the homeland of the Jews. It denotes philosophy, attitudes, and it's one thing if you want to highlight these people that have this particular ideology. That's fair enough. But when you identify a race of people as being the problem, when in reality not all Jews have this political ideology that you speak of, not all Jews have these motives that you find within a particular faith, it's a very inaccurate way of communicating. And this is the problem that I've had with a lot of the statements many of these figures have often said, not just people within the black community, but look, we often joke about things like this, like we make reference to black people as, popping caps in people's asses, being gangsters, or white people as being bad on the dance floor and so forth. And granted, these are generalizations, but I think we have to be impeccable with our words. Doesn't mean that I support censorship, but I think you do need to be held accountable for what you're saying. And to make a statement like that, quite frankly, is not an accurate statement. I don't think it's an accurate statement anytime you are generalizing to that extent. You're saying something pernicious in regards to an entire race of people. And I think Kanye, he regrets having perhaps phrased what he said on Twitter. I think he's recently come back after having lost multi-billions of dollars and said that feels as if he's been humbled. That in the same way that George Floyd suffered a lot of pain having a knee on his neck and him questioning whether or not it went down as it did, he felt as if what he'd experienced over the last few days, weeks, was symbolic of having that knee on his neck and understanding what it feels like to be humbled in front of the world, to no longer be a multi-billionaire. But look, in regards to the other stuff that's happened to Kanye, ladies and gentlemen, it is insane. I am not a fan of censorship. Obviously, I believe in freedom of speech. I believe in liberty, unequivocally, unassailably. I believe that the rights of the individual are not determined from the generosity of the state, and I believe that people have a right to live their lives. That being said, with freedom comes a tremendous amount of danger, uncertainty, and things can be very pleasant, particularly if people aren't working together as one, and we have a lot of vitriol towards certain people. And within that also comes freedom of association. People have the right to associate with whoever the hell they want to. And as much as I don't like what's happened to him, and there is a clear distinction between not liking something that's happened, advocating for something, and understanding that it is someone or some company's right to do that. Anytime I speak about rights, I am trying to be as definitive and impartial as I can be. But a lot of times people think that just because you believe in rights which I think are unalienable, that you're somehow being biased. It would be biased of me to say that it's okay for one race to do something, but not okay for another race to do something. It is absolutely people's rights, regardless of what race they may be, to decide whether or not they want to associate with you, to take you off of their platform, even to close your bank account, if that is what is written within the contract. Now, the Kanye situation is a little trickier than that. One of the things Kanye said is that Adidas can't cancel me, right? Even if I say anti-Semitic things, which we obviously saw was not right, which is not the case. Now, the reason Kanye, I understand, said that is because he had a contract with Adidas, and essentially, if they were to cancel this contract with him, they would have to eat $300 million. At least this is what I've heard. And it would make sense that he had some kind of contract in place, obviously. But what he wasn't aware of is that these companies that were most likely owned by Zionists, Jews, it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant really, we're not happy having him say negative, offensive, anti-Semitic things, and we're quite willing to eat $300 million, which is essentially what they would have had to pay in order to cancel him. Companies that are that powerful, that have that kind of money, at the end of the day, it's not always about money, it's about influence. And the thing that I think Kanye didn't realize is that people, many of these figures that have this tremendous power to cancel people, they care more about perception, they care more about unpleasant truths being said, and unfortunately, even the truth coming out than they do about paying hundreds of millions of dollars. And as a result, Kanye has suffered a shitload. He's not only lost deals, not only lost the billions that he had, but he has been shut out of mainstream platforms. And it's a lesson to all of us. You have to realize that anytime you are, and this is pretty much a representative of how we live our lives. You know, we are not islands. Essentially, anytime you are doing something in this world where you are working with people, and that's pretty much in any kind of major capacity, you have to realize that your actions are going to ripple. Now, I'm not making the argument that you shouldn't speak your mind, but you do need to be cerebral about this shit. You need to play a chess game. You can't always do things, particularly when it comes to business. Business is a terrain of war where you have to be conscious. There's a time to be conscious. There's a time to be paratelic, where you just go with the flow. As an artist, Kanye is a legend because he is someone that lives in his heart. This is where artists live. This is in the state where you speak your mind, you say what you feel what you say, and you don't care about the consequences. When it comes to business, on the other hand, that is a minefield. You can't be doing things, I would argue, like pissing off people that you're working with, because they're obviously going to pull the support from under you, and then you find you don't have any legs to stand on. And as a result, he's down a lot of money. But it also shows us how money, wealth, is this intangible thing. The way that it's set up in the world, you can think you have billions of dollars, but just like that, your support can be pulled away from you. That's why it's so important to create real wealth, to perhaps diversify, to have your money not just within a company that can so easily take that money away from you. That's why in this day and age where we have crypto, where we have other ways of creating our sovereignty other than relying on the current establishment, it's a good idea to invest in things that are yours. Things like cryptocurrencies, where essentially they can't be as easily taken away from you due to the technology. And also investing in gold, silver, something that I'm actually looking to do, realizing that in this day and age, ladies and gentlemen, it's so easy for governments to take your shit away from you. Anyway, as for Kanye, if I was going to speak openly about the guy, I think he's someone that has a tremendous amount of courage. That's something we don't see enough of in the 21st century. He's someone that questions the moral certitudes of the time. One of the biggest issues that I've had within the current collective. Yo, we got Stardust Prodigy in the house. What's happening, girl? Hey, funny seeing you here. So I'd say one of the issues that we have, and I know this is going to touch home to Stardust as well, is that people care too much about the color of your skin, about your race. Granted, black people who recently, in recent times, because look, every culture has experienced some kind of discrimination throughout the history of the world, right? But they often make this argument about how they have been persecuted. You know, my brothers and sisters, we suffered long and hard under the white man's regime, man. What the fuck you think you are? Man, you got to give me reparations, mofo. But the truth is, we've all suffered this. The truth is that every race has been under the tyranny of slavery. Every race has suffered some kind of unjust discrimination. But I find black people often, it's been my experience, and I'm sure most of you will agree if you're being honest, they often highlight this fact more so than, I would say, many of the other races. I can't remember the last time I heard a Chinese person speaking about how they've been persecuted, about how Pol Pot slaughtered, or an Asian person spoke about how they were slaughtered by this tyrant, about how Genghis Khan killed millions of their family many, many generations ago. Or some other great leader, dictator, how long ago? And I know you can make the argument that, Genghis Khan essentially killed other races, but he killed a lot of his own people as well. That's what you probably didn't realize. It was actually common practice with Genghis Khan there was a point where, a bit of a history lesson here, where they would eat the soldiers if they had no food. These are the kind of practices the Mongolian army would implement. But the point is, every culture, every race, every society, if you go back far enough, they've implemented horrible things. And whereas black people are always talking about the horrible things white people have implemented on their race, they fail to see that black people have been implementing horrible things on white people throughout history as well. I mean, you have a look at the first black kings, the Moors. They were essentially treating the Slavic people in the worst way possible. The word slavery actually comes from Slav, and it makes the way in which black people have been treated pale in comparison. And then, of course, you have a look at the Ashanti Empire. That's where I come from. I'm an Ashanti. Ooh! West Africa, ladies and gentlemen, we had a 1,000-year history of slavery, and we sold a lot of our black folk to the white people. But do I play this game where I say, man, black people are good or evil? No, black people are individuals. Just because of what people did in their past, their ancestors did, doesn't define whether or not they are good or bad. Your life is determined from your actions. The circumstances of your birth really is irrelevant. It's what you do with this gift that determines who you are. Anyway, the point I wanted to make here is that Kanye highlighted, or has been highlighting, that, you ready for it? White lives matter. Where he wore a shirt some time ago, and obviously this upset a lot of people in the BLM movement because they feel as if there's a lot of injustice towards the black people, which is true. Often these people are marginalized. Often they are facing the worst penalties from the law and so forth. And these are issues that need to be addressed. But in reality, every black issue is a human issue. Every white issue is a human issue. And rather than having this myopic mindset where you can only see the injustices of your community, someone like Kanye basically broadens the view and makes people realize that, look, at the end of the day, we are all people living under these skies. If Martin Luther King was still alive, I think he would be very disappointed with the way we've been behaving over the last few decades. This dream that he had has been completely obfuscated. We find so many people within the black community, I see this on TV all the time, talking about how we need to get rid of white people, how white people are a plague, white people are evil, black people have never done any evil things, which is completely ridiculous. Anyone that says that is working out of anger and frustration. Anyone that says that is denying the fact that there have been many black civilizations that have done the most outrageous things in past. I mean, just have a look at what happened not even that long ago in South Africa. The Tutu and the Hutsi. I mean, we're talking about people here that essentially killed each other for the most subtle differences. We're talking about not even that long ago, ladies and gentlemen. It seems like a long time, but the time of the black kings that enslaved many, many different civilizations. People often forget that their own civilization was built off of tyranny. At least a lot of people I find within the black community. And they say that, yeah, but recently, white people have been doing all the horrible, evil things in this world. And I'm like, well, bro, do you watch the news? Do you realize that there are figures like Colin Powell, who was a leader in the U.S. forces that was responsible for orchestrating a lot of the attacks in Iraq, amongst other brown people? I mean, does it really matter what the color of their skin is? Does it really matter if we look at them as being of a particular race or a particular nationality? At the end of the day, it's humans that are killing humans. So I just find it somewhat disconcerting that we are still making this an issue about race. If you want to address the race issue, you need to stop looking at people as races, but as individuals. To judge them not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, as Martin Luther King would say. But anyway, enough about Kanye. I want to talk about another interesting black individual that has been saying some very controversial stuff as of late, and that is Kyrie Irving. So Kyrie Irving, famous basketball player, recently shared a tweet about a figure that we're all very familiar with if we're in the truth movement, if we like conspiracy theories or conspiracy truths, right? In light of what's been happening over the last few years, we know that, yeah, there ain't no conspiracy theories anymore. They're just conspiracy truths. But Alex Jones, Kyrie Irving shared a post of a documentary featuring Alex Jones. And apparently this I've probably seen the documentary, but I don't know the one he shared. Uh, but apparently this had some anti-Semitic ideas. Now, the fact that Kyrie Irving was not only interrogated for simply sharing this video, right? And when he was asked why he shared this, he explained the fact that the documentary was about conspiracy theories or secret societies. And it was true. Just because you share something from someone doesn't mean that you support everything that they advocate for. This is the crazy thing. Like, you can like something about someone and not like every single thing that they do and say. You can share something because you like something within a documentary that you've shared, but you don't like everything about it. But in this day and age, people are so quick to attack you if you share or promote anything. You might be simply promoting something because you want to bring light to a great evil. There are a lot of things that I don't support, right? For instance, if I share a video of Fauci, saying something, what? And Fauci saying something ridiculous, right? Like many of the ridiculous things that he said as of late. Talk about in regards to the boom shakalaka, proven not to be so scientific. But in any event, if I share something like that, it doesn't mean that I support Fauci. It might be the fact that I'm just shedding light on it. But by this kind of standard that people get criticized this day and age, you're a bad person because you promoted something that is causing harm. And this is essentially the reason that the media has used to attack Kyrie Irving. Shared a video about Alex Jones, who he openly, didn't have to say this, openly, in a sense, condemned, said that, look, he doesn't support Alex Jones' stance on the recent fiasco where he got fined almost $1 billion, right? Doesn't support a lot of the things that he says, but he spoke about within this documentary about secret societies, which in fact are true. A lot of the things that Alex Jones has been saying have been definitively true, and you'll find in the coming times that a lot of the stuff that he has been saying as of late is going to be proved to be very true. Alex Jones gets a lot of stuff wrong, no doubt, but he also gets a lot of stuff right. And we should be able to have a conversation about this. But anyway, Kyrie Irving not only gets berated by this reporter, right, and he handled himself brilliantly like a black man standing in his power. In fact, scrap that. Like a true warrior. A warrior of light, a human being that stands in their power, regardless of race. This is not about black power. This is about being an individual and not succumbing to the collective, right? It's always the noise of the crowd that is trying to drown out your inner light. He's someone that has just stood in his ground, said, look, he happened to share, like he shares a lot of things, shares a documentary about Alex Jones talking about some stuff that happens to be true. And what happens to him? This guy gets fined. Well, he got kicked out for at least a few games, from what I understand, and loses a deal with Nike worth $17 million. This is what happens when you speak out against those that you cannot criticize, right? And the thing is, he didn't even speak out against these people. He just happened to share a documentary that had someone saying something, one of which was things that are not favorable against these people that you cannot criticize. And this is where we're at. Now, I want to make it very clear. I am not. In fact, I don't even like saying I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm a Jew supremacist. I like Jews. In fact, I have this special thing for Jews. Everyone has their own taste. Like, anytime I find a people that have a really interesting history, I'm attracted to them. I'm a xenophile. I'm attracted to people that are different or come from a different part of the world. And because I'm not as familiar with the Jewish culture, whether they be Sephardic or Ashkenazi, I want to learn about them. I like Jews. Of course I like Jews, and I like the culture specifically. And I find myself wanting to be drawn to learn about them. But that being said, it doesn't mean I can't criticize them. Just like it doesn't mean I can't criticize black people just because I'm black. I find myself constantly criticizing black people because it's the one area that I am completely immune from. Because apparently I'm a black person. I mean, last time I checked, right? I'm from Ghana, West Africa, right? I've never looked at myself as a black person, though. I think it's ridiculous, the fact that people define who they are based off of their race. So the point is, no one should be above criticism. And what we've seen in recent times is that Whereas that is a beautiful theory built of air and imagination, right? That we all live in a society where we have freedom of speech. As soon as you say something that offends someone, a particular group. Now, granted, I think you can, in regards to the situation with Kanye, you can definitely be more tactful. He could have said he had an experience with someone that happened to be of this particular religion, and he should have probably used the word Zionist. He's not in favor of that because that's a political ideology. It would be similar to saying that I don't like communists, right? I don't like communism. Doesn't mean that I have any pernicious feelings towards someone because of their race, but I have negative feelings towards someone because of their ideology. You see, there's nothing wrong with judgment, provided it's judgment based off of the content of your character. But when it's things that you cannot control, like your race and your sexuality, that kind of thing, it just becomes lame. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I want to speak about a few other things that are going on in the world right now. Now, I want to speak about this without speaking about it, as you kind of have to in this day and age of censorship. But I do realize that as of late, there has been a change in the tides, so to speak, in regards to what has been going on around the boom shakalakas and so forth. And a lot of people are expressing regret. A lot of people are saying they didn't know, and they're asking for amnesty. And I would say that, look, without talking about the science, because this is the other thing, right? What has gone on over the last 3 years can be looked at in many lights. Now, there are some people that I'd say for the most part, they focus on the science, the fact that they didn't know. In fact, there's an article written that is going crazy by a lady by the name of Emily, I think it was, where she makes the case that we need amnesty, right, for the pandemic, all right? And she makes the argument that, this was a chance, that there are some people that got it right, there are others that got it wrong. It was pretty much just a luck of the die kind of thing, that we couldn't have known. And I would call bullshit on that. Of course you can know. If you take the time to actually not listen to what the media is saying, but you actually look at the source material, you can always find out what's going on. And that's not saying it's here or there in regards to the information, but I'm saying that if you really wanted to get to the truth of things, you could have a look at the source. You could have a look at the companies involved. But outside of the science, because whereas I understand a lot of people are making the argument that the science was showing this and that, I find myself drilling this point home time and time again, people getting frustrated with me because ultimately I think this comes down to our value systems. What has happened really strikes at the heart of who we are based off of the actions that we took. It comes down to the fact that there are some people that fundamentally, granted they'll make the argument that the science was showing X and Y, this is what it unequivocally comes down to. Take a deep breath, because I realize this is going to offend a lot of people, because the majority of people know that this is right in their heart of hearts, but they will not accept it because it makes them realize that they're complicit in, if not complicit in doing things over the recent years that have been bad, they're definitely capable of doing things that are bad. And we all are to some extent, but it's about having the courage to stand in your Christed light and doing something you know to be true within the moment. That's how you look at right and wrong within a classical sense when it comes to moral philosophy. There's this question I always pose people, like, is it all right to go back in time to kill Hitler, right, as a kid, if it would prevent the war eventuating? Now, granted, we all accept the killing is wrong, but there's some that would advocate that if it can prevent a war, it's acceptable. And at the heart of this question, it's looking at something on whether or not it's intrinsically right or wrong. And this applies to the situation at hand with the events of the last few years. There are some that would have it that it's acceptable to curtail the rights of the individual, whether it's locking them in their homes, whether it is preventing them from leaving the country, whether it is coercing them, whether it's the government putting pressures, violating the Nuremberg Code, which is based off of consent. That's the number one clause, right? There's some that would have it that it is acceptable to do this in the interest of achieving a result. And this is where it comes down to. This is what it comes down to. There are those that say, oh, it has to do with the information, it's not relevant because people had the wrong information, right? People will always make this argument that if the information was accurate, then it would never have even gotten to that point where you've had to make a decision. The point, though, is that the information in regards to the science was not correct, obviously. Well, at least some would argue that. But it can never be definitive. Anytime you're making an argument based off of what you think is going to lead to the greatest amount of good, it's not a scientific issue. It's a strategy. And there are so many people that were willing to sacrifice people's lives, people's rights, coerce them to do things because they believed it was right. So many of the rights that we've held as sacrosanct were violated over the last few years. So many of the legal codes that were put in place in order to protect people have been completely disregarded, all in the interest of trusting the science. That's right. And all because a bunch of people didn't have the courage to actually plant themselves like a tree beside the river of truth and say nay to the tyranny. You know, I came across a beautiful analogy of what's happened over the last few years, right? It's almost like we were kidnapped and put on some kind of desert island, right? And things got really uncomfortable. And one group of people were saying, hey, look, we should eat those that aren't able to survive because they're probably going to die anyway. Let's eat them. And then the other group of people were looking at those that were advocating cannibalism and saying, what? You fucking crazy. And then just before these guys were about to eat us, in fact, let's expound on that. Let's say some of them actually decided to eat us, right? Eat those that weren't advocating cannibalism. Then we all get saved and we all get taken on this ship right outside of the island. And on the way back, the people who were advocating cannibalism are saying, oh, wasn't that horrible? Oh my God, it was such a horrible thing. It's such, let's just forget about the whole thing. Let's just declare an amnesty. And we're looking at those people saying, you try to eat my friends, you're fucking crazy. Yeah, but there's no other way. It was like necessary. And like the science was showing that we were going to die. And as you would expect, a lot of us are very concerned about those that were advocating the cannibalism. A lot of us are very concerned about those that were saying that, oh, look, the science was showing X and Y. When the truth is, it doesn't matter what the science said. And there are a lot of people I've been speaking to that are taking offense to this. And the reason I take issue with this is because unequivocally, whatever happens in the future, I think it's likely we're going to see a situation where we're probably going to have agreement that the science is actually very, very serious. It's showing that something could befall all of society that is very, very catastrophic, right? And then we're going to have the real issue of deciding whether or not we're going to still respect these unalienable human rights. They're called human rights because they're humane, that we deem them to be the best representation of the highest version of humanity, where we respect freedoms, individual rights. We believe that violating these things are synonymous with immoral behavior. Things like respecting people's ability to live their own lives, having a consent-based system of ethics and law, provided you're not violating anyone's inherent natural rights. And when we cross into these things, as has happened many times in history, under the justification that it's for the greater good, we always end up doing the worst things and regretting this. This is what happened in the 1930s. Now, granted, people will say it was different. The science was showing X and Y. The reality is there's so many commonalities between what has taken place recently and what has happened time and time again. The discrimination that we've seen. Back in the 1930s, those that had those yellow stars, yellow badges. And we saw that in Australia. I mean, there were schools that were bold enough to have students, little kids that had not taken the magic potion, to have to wear a yellow card, right? And they would not be allowed access in certain areas and so forth. So the discrimination. But more importantly, because whereas you can argue that, look, there's nothing wrong with discrimination in terms of having discernment, deciding whether or not you want to associate with people. Because look, I'm all in favor of people choosing they don't want to associate with you because of even unpleasant reasons, like they don't like the color of your skin or they think that you are a risk, right? Provided it's within their own personal capacity, and that's on them. But the problem is when a government gets involved and it uses the power of the state to coerce us, to have to do things that we don't want to do. And that's what we've seen as of late. And you have a look at the one thing that we've been seeing over the last 2 to 3 years is the complete erosion of freedoms, the complete erosion of natural law. We're moving more and more into this society that is totalitarian. This is fundamentally what the truth movement is all about. It's about freedom. The truth movement is synonymous with freedom. Freedom and truth go hand in hand. One, we need truth in order to be able to discern what is going on in the world, in order to move towards the utopian society that we all dream of. But we also need freedom, the freedom to be able to make decisions for ourselves. And when people are wanting to erode the truth and erode our freedom to decide how we live our lives, then we don't have a really flourishing society. And ladies and gentlemen, if there's anything that I have learnt over the last 2 to 3 years, it's that people, as was aptly put by Benjamin Franklin, that sacrifice their freedom for a little temporary security deserve neither. Anyway, that pretty much outlines what has been going on over the last 2 to 3 years. There's obviously a lot more to what's been going on, which I cannot get into for obvious reasons. But ladies and gentlemen, if you want to stay up to date, delve into this world of conspiracy theories, conscious conversation, spirituality, metaphysics, bitches and Bitcoin, amongst other things, be sure to check us out. I am the Chocolate Nubian Soul Brother from Ghana, West Africa. I'll drop the wisdomatic truth bombs. So, look, briefly, I just want to end this by saying that first and foremost, that it is not about your race. Black supremacy is just as bad as white supremacy. This is something that was uttered by Martin Luther King. And I truly believe, and I think we all know this deep down, that if Martin Luther King was still alive and had a look at the way that these race wars have been flourishing, particularly in the United States, the tremendous hatred that I'm seeing, the targeting of entire groups of people, whether that be Jews, black people, white people, the kind of language that is used, this attitude that one race is better than the other, one race is good and loving, and another race is violent. Look at individuals, but as soon as you get caught up in the realm of race, looking at entire groups of people, you're only going to be making false arguments or generalizations, which are very, very flaky. And more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to doing the right thing, plant yourself like a tree beside the river of truth. Have the moral conviction to do what you believe is right within your heart of hearts, even when the society is saying that you're a fool, that you should listen to the science. Because science has nothing to do, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of like science, where this comes from, in terms of the scientific method, this can all be traced to Sir Francis Bacon, founder of the scientific method, but can be traced further back to the Hermetical tradition. I mean, we get much of the sciences that we have from the ancient mystery school knowledge, whether it is chemistry, from alchemy. These are the systems of science that were used in the land of Chem, the land of the black. That's where I come from, ladies and gentlemen. The Dogon tribe in West Africa, or the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians. This is a system of understanding reality. It can be broken down into empiricism, understanding reality through experiences and so forth. Now, that being said, just because we have an understanding of science doesn't make it right. There are many different forms of science. And the problem that we are seeing as of late is that people are using the science to justify things that should never be justifiable. They are using the idea of trying to arrive at outcomes, goals, which are not scientific in themselves. Any attempt in order to achieve a particular result, granted, you can apply science, you can apply statistics, you can look at an observation of data and so forth to try to ascertain whether or not it's likely to eventuate. But ultimately, you're making a judgment call that is not definitive. And a lot of people have fallen into this way of thinking that it is acceptable to use strategy as an attempt to justify violations of people's freedoms. You see, this is what the Marxists do. This is what Karl Marx believed in. Karl Marx was someone that did not believe in principles, liberty, justice as such. He believed in trying to achieve goals. And yeah, that's another good point. Never follow the majority. I mean, the truth is that there's something called Asch conformity, or the hive. There have been many psychological tests that have dealt with this, that whereas we think there is intelligence within groups, you see, there's only intelligence in groups when individuals, right, that are connected to their higher thinking are actually making individual decisions. And when you take all of these individual decisions collectively, then you can arrive at a sensible outcome. But the problem is that when you get masses, when you get large groups of people together, there's this weird thing that comes about. It's known as an egregore in ancient mystery schools, where there's this collective consciousness that is formed. Now, granted, this can be to the benefit of the hive. For instance, there is this consciousness that takes form when you get a group of intelligent, conscious people together that essentially moves the group forward. But similarly, when you get a group of people that are just operating from lower thinking, they have been dumbed down into this state of fear because of all the mass media, and they're all working collectively like, then you get this low vibrating consciousness that emerges that is working from a place of fear, that is not working from a place of true intelligence, gents making reference to the generating principle, which deals with the creative force, truly allowing yourself to connect to the higher aspects of thinking, deals with creativity and trying to look for solutions, trying to understand things holistically. No, it just reverts to this low reptilian brain form of thinking. And the consciousness that emerges from groups is definitely not beneficent. And this is what we've seen in recent times, that the vast majority of people can be made to do things that one sane individual would objectively see as being foolish. It's like the Asch conformity experiment. This is a classic experiment that I always reference, where you have a look at a group of students that were made to determine which line was longer out of two lines. And it was pretty obvious, but one person within the group was not in on this little trick that was in play, where the teachers had instructed the students to pick the wrong line and all agree. So one person within this group, if memory serves me, is seeing the vast majority of people pick one option, right? And he knows to be wrong. But he eventually ends up picking the wrong option time and time again because the group is making the wrong decision. And they found time and time again that this is something that would happen, that despite people's better judgment, when they were confronted with a group of people making a decision, they would pick something that went against their better judgment. And what we see in society is that ultimately, when enough people pick something, right? Because a lot of the times people don't know what the right answer is. They're just looking amongst each other, trying to figure out what to do. And then one person makes a decision, and then, like clockwork, everyone decides to go to that decision. And the vast majority of people, they will go with the decision that everyone else is doing. Most people believe what they believe because everyone else is believing it. And then there are those of us, the Aquarians, the misfits, those that beat to the rhythm of our own hearts, that say, meh. I mean, no, we don't say meh. We say, rah. We're warriors. We're lions. We don't allow the hive to determine what is right and wrong. And that's what we need to become, ladies and gentlemen. We need to become warriors, people that are inclined to do our own thinking. And then when you are thinking independently, you're connected to that higher consciousness, that anahata, or the crown. Then you can express yourself. And you'll find when we are all thinking individually, collectively, that's when we form an egregore of higher consciousness, and we can actually move this world into a better place. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, enough. That has been a long rant. As I often say, remember there are three things that cannot remain hidden for long: the sun, the moon, and the wisdomatic truth bombs of the chocolate Nubian soul brother. Be sure to check us out on Patreon if you guys want to support me. I have a Patreon. I'm going to be posting some content recently through the new features that they have added, where I can post some videos. I'm going to see if I can have this up exclusively for a day or two for the Well, I have one Patreon at the moment, so if you want to add to that. But I got some treats coming on, and I'm gonna be trying to release some new content on the regular, speaking about weird science, freaking magic, esoteric mystery schools, bitches and Bitcoin, but also showcasing my musical talents, new songs I got coming out, and a whole bunch of other things I will be doing on this crucial journey. But until next time, kisses, hugs, and booty spanks. Illuminate your mind with wisdom, strengthen your will with love, purge all negative thought patterns from your existence. Surya Namaskar, Namaste, that means I salute the sun, and I bow to the divinity that is manifest in every single one of you. Satya Agraha. That's something that is very relevant in this day and age. It means the truth force. Let the truth guide you. Let the truth be such a powerful force that you are able to speak it even if your voice shakes. Let the truth flow through your heart, manifest itself through your consciousness in every ounce of your being. You must be so strong in your conviction, ladies and gentlemen, that all the sheep are drowned out by your spirit, by your Satya Agraha. Surya Namaskar, Namaste, Satya Agraha. Ow!